What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the second video of today. Please make sure to like and subscribe down below if you're new. So, we're going overseas for this video to discuss the UK's general election, which is happening and taking place tomorrow. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because there are several different polling places, or several different polling sites out there that are showing several different graphs. First of all, you got electoral calculus predicting about a big, huge majority for Labour. And everybody is predicting that Labour is going to win this election. I've already called this election for Labour. I'm pretty sure Labour is already going to win this thing. But the question is, who's going to be the opposition to the Labour government? Is it going to be the Conservatives? Or is it going to be Reform? Or is it going to be the Liberal Democrats? Well, today we're going to answer that question. We're going to analyze the polls, and we're going to figure out exactly what is going on. But as of right now, before we get started, Labour is holding a 40.8% lead, 20 points more than the Conservatives. And considering the Conservatives are within the margin of error to Reform, it is very possible that this goes down the wire of the elections. Now, the UK doesn't have elections like the way the United States does, where here in the United States we have to wait for like 3 or 4 days sometimes to get all the results. But because in the UK, they count them overnight, and then every single seat is usually declared by the next morning. So we shouldn't have to wait too long for these. But with that being said, we're going to start by talking about electoral calculus. So electoral calculus, if we go to UK predictions, and we go to our predictions, it currently has a predicted seat for Reform at 7, and Reform's high seats at 89. But, however, if this turns out to be correct, Ed Davey and the Liberal Democrats would turn out to be the opposition. I don't think the Liberal Democrats will get 71 seats. I just don't think that's going to happen. Reform is higher than them in the polls, and yes, I know the UK uses the first past the post system, and this is one reason they need to switch to proportional representation, is partially because of this. Every other country in Europe uses proportional representation outside of Belarus. So with that being said, regarding all of these, the Conservatives have really fallen quite a lot. They won a huge majority in 2019 with 376 seats, or that was their prediction. I think they got more like 365 seats, but still kind of close. But now they're predicting they could get that they would drop about 304 seats to 61. I know they have 344 seats right now because they lost a bunch of special elections, or by-elections is what they call them over there. But from the last general election, they'd be dropping about 304 seats. So it's not looking good for the Conservatives, and it's really on the upward trend for Reform. But if we look at the map, and we look at some key seats, because this is really what's going to decide how this thing swings. If we scroll down and we zoom in, this is Boston and Skegness, and this is Louth and Horncastle. They don't do it by numbers here in the UK like districts, like District 1, District 2, that sort of thing. I'm glad they don't. And Ashfield, which is currently held by Reform UK defection MP Lee Anderson, currently holds that seat. Barnsley South is also a Reform slated pickup. And Cannock Chase is also a Reform slanted pickup. And here's Clacton. This is the seat that Nigel Farage is running in. This one is almost certain to go for Nigel Farage, because if we look at the predictions, if we go to your seat, and we type in Clacton, if Nigel Farage doesn't win this seat, I would be really surprised, because he is ahead by about 20 points, as you are about to see as soon as my computer will load. As you can see, Reform's got an 80% chance at winning this seat, and by about 14.1 points. Now, here's the thing. I don't expect Reform to win a majority. I don't expect them to win more than like 15 seats. But if they can get a sizable amount of seats and break through into Parliament and be in opposition to what is most likely to be a huge Labour Starmer government, then that would be a job well done. I do think that they do get some seats. I think they win Boston and Skegness. I definitely think they'll win Clacton, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll probably do a post-analysis video to see how accurate I am. I'm not good at predicting UK elections, so hopefully my friends over in the UK can help with that. If I got anything wrong, let me know down in the comments on what I can do. But the reason I bring this seat up in specific is in the 2015 election, UKIP. This was the only UKIP MP back in the day. And I'm being serious about that. I think that the UKIP winning the seat before was a big push. I definitely believe that. But if we go back to the predictions, we're going to talk a little bit more about Ashfield. So we're going to plug in our numbers here. I think that the Tories will get around 20%. Labour's going to get about 40. The Liberal Democrats can get about 10, I'd say. The Reform Party would probably likely get. I've seen some polls for Reform at 24, but we're going to give them 19%, and we're going to give the Greens 2%. So if we go predict elections, and then if we go with tactical voting, all Great Britain change seats. I want the new boundaries. Let's predict this thing. So if we predict the election here, it would pull up and say that Reform would get 10 seats, the Conservatives would get 69 or 63, Labour would get 469, Liberal Democrats would get 68 seats, and a couple of others. So I could see Reform getting around 10 to 15 seats. I don't think they'll get more than that. But what I found was rather interesting is that it's very likely after the election that you will see Reform and the Conservatives merge together and create a new party, say like Conform or New Conservatives or something like that on the center right. And Nigel Farage said he would be open to leading a coalition like that. But here are the current polls from the election. If we look at some of these polls, Nigel Farage took the helm at Reform UK somewhere around here. When they were polling at they entered the election polling around 17 or 14, 12%. But then they go to this GB News poll, which has them up by 24. Now, with 24% of the vote, up 9 from the Conservatives. Now, I'm not predicting that that's the result they're going to get. Most certainly, it's not the result they're going to get. But if we look at some of the other polls, whenever a wide sample is polled, Reform usually polls higher than the Conservatives. If we show the margin of error, we'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I do think that the margin of error is around 3. So yeah, it's looking good for Reform, and I do think Reform will likely take the Conservatives and something new will show up. What is that exactly going to be? Well, we will have to wait and see. But if we go to predictions, I strongly think what we're going to see, if we go and scroll through some of these seats, say we're going to go to, I don't know exactly where we're going to go. We're going to go to, say, Belfast North, for example, just a random seat I thought of. And you're going to see something that I thought was pretty interesting, and then we'll do a red wall seat in a moment, and I'll show you exactly my analysis for this election. Because what I think you're going to see come election time is a bunch of red wall seats, or never mind, this is not a UK seat, I think that's somewhere else. But what the point I'm trying to get across is after the election, I think you're going to see in the red wall up here several seats with a lot of Reform second places. I think that's what we're going to see here. So I would not be surprised if Reform does extremely well. If Reform does extremely well in this election, I do think that there will be a lot of second places, and then it'll prove that they are the opposition to the Starmer Labour government. And based on what I've already seen, I think the Labour government's going to be rather unpopular. So yep, exactly what I thought, just a random Preston seat. Reform coming in second behind Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. So as I said, you're going to see a lot of, if these polls are correct, you're going to see a lot of Reform second places. I'm being absolutely serious about that. And then if we go to Blackpool, which is another seat that I think is also worth looking at too. Blackpool South, where they had the by-election a couple weeks ago, back in May. This is another seat that I think is also rather likely to go with a Reform second place that Conservatives picked up in 2019 through their big sweep. As you can see, Reform is second place, and we will probably see this trend continue into election day. But regardless of what they are suspecting will turn into actual amount of seats, considering they're polling at if they get something closer to 24%, I expect they'll get around 20 seats. If they get what I'm expecting them to get around like 19%, they'll probably get about 10 seats. It all comes down to what happens because of yet again, the first past the post system. So again, we're going to have to wait and see. Reform is picking up steam, and I think they will merge together. But yeah, even if the conservatives and the Reform merged together right now and took the fight to Labor, they might have a shot of winning some of their other seats. We'll have to wait and see. So anyway, keep your eye out on Clacton, Boston, Skegness, and several of these other states. I'll leave the links to all these websites down in the description down below. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was nice and short, but again, it's an election for tomorrow, and there's not really a lot of time to analysis, especially since I don't know UK politics nearly that well, because first past the post voting system, if it was the proportional voting system, as I said from day one, if it was the proportional system, this would have been a much easier election to predict, because I would just be able to read the polls. But considering it's first past the post, it's going to be a lot harder, and we'll have to wait and see what happens on Friday. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.